So yes, it is true. Dubai is no longer a 0% tax place. In 2024, the UAE has announced the 9% corporate tax. So what does this mean for you? Does this mean that Dubai is no longer the place that you should move to as an expat or an entrepreneur? My name is Thomas, and on this channel I help people like you move to and live in different places around the world, mainly Dubai and the UAE. That is where I live most of the time, so that is what most of my videos are about. I've been running a business there for 1.5 years. So someone who has now been running a business there for the first half of this year, when this 9% tax has been in place, what is the deal really with this 9% tax? Because there's a lot of people who are now saying and making all these YouTube titles like, oh, the end of Dubai, 9% tax. Oh my God, this is terrible. But let's talk about what is the actual reality of this 9% tax. Because let me tell you, chances are that for 99% of you, you won't actually even have to pay this tax. So in this video, I want to give you accurate and objective information about this new 9% tax based on the actual law, like what the law actually says, so that then you can take this information and make the decision for you based on your situation. By the way, if you yourself are currently looking to move yourself, your business, your tax residency to Dubai, then I can hook you up with the best people in the industry down below. What they can do is offer you a free consultation, 45 minutes, where they can walk you through the entire process, everything that it takes from start to finish to get set up in Dubai. You can book that free call down below in the description if again you are interested in moving to Dubai despite of this 9% tax. So go click that link down below in the description and let's get into the video. So first things first, let's just talk about what this tax even is. So if you go here into the website of the actual UAE government, we will be able to see that in January 2022, Ministry of Finance announced that it will introduce a federal corporate tax on the net profit of businesses. So what is the tax? It is a corporate tax levied on the net income or profit of corporations. So a corporate tax, just like any other corporate tax in any other country. Well, by default, is going to apply to all businesses, but there's actually a ton of exemptions from this. You can see that there are some industries that it first of all does not apply to. So if you operate a business in like natural resources or something like that, then it's not going to apply to you. It's not going to apply to dividends and capital gains earned by UAE businesses from its qualifying shareholdings. Additionally, corporate tax will not apply to an individual earning a salary or other employment income. So this is not a personal income tax. If you earn a salary, maybe if you work a job in the UAE, nothing changes for you. Still 0%. By the way, this includes salaries that you pay to yourself from your company. We'll get back to that in a second. We have interest and other income earned by an individual from bank deposits and savings schemes. Does not apply to that. Investor income. So if you come to the UAE, maybe you set up a company here, but it's mainly for personal investment purposes, you're not going to have to pay the 9% tax. Investment in real estate. So if you come to Dubai, you invest in real estate, maybe you have an Airbnb or a rental or something, that does not count as business income for the purposes of this corporate tax. And any other dividends, capital gains, etc., corporate tax will not apply to that. And here we get to the rate of the corporate tax. So first of all, no matter what happens, the first 375,000 dirhams is going to be taxed at 0%. So the first around $100,000 not going to be taxed. And the 9% corporate tax is only going to apply above that, so above 375,000. But there's yet another caveat to that, which we'll get back to in a second. But first, let's just talk about the first piece of misinformation that there still seems to be floating around about the corporate tax, and that is that if you have a free zone company in the UAE, then you are not going to be liable for corporate tax. This is categorically false. Like they have confirmed on so many teasers. Like I will literally leave the law down below if you don't believe. You can read the law. It specifically states that all companies, including free zone companies, are going to be liable for the corporate tax. So every company in the UAE, no matter whether it's a mainland or a free zone company, is going to have to pay this tax. And misinformation number 2 about the corporate tax is that you can simply avoid the corporate tax by simply paying yourself all the company profits as a salary. Now this is partially false, because what you can do is pay yourself what is called a reasonable salary. If you read the letter of the law, it doesn't define exactly what the amount is, because obviously that is going to depend on your industry, what you do, things like this. But basically the idea is that if you were to hire someone else to do your job, like what you do in your business, what would you pay them as a salary? So what is essentially the market rate salary for the type of work that you perform? That is what you're going to be able to deduct from the business profits as a salary to yourself, and therefore that portion of the business profits is not going to be taxable. Now of course you can pay yourself whatever you want. You can physically just send yourself as much money as you want from your company. It is your company after all, but it is only the reasonable salary, whatever they deem that is for you, that is going to be deductible in taxes. But now here here we get to the big caveat that is going to basically make this irrelevant for a lot of people, and that is the small business relief. Essentially, the small business relief is something where small businesses are going to be exempted entirely from this 9% corporate tax. Let's see what it says here on the government website. What are the conditions? This is the important one. Revenue equal to or less than 3 million AED in both the current and all previous tax periods. What does this mean? It means if you make less than 3 million dirhams, so around 816,000 US dollars in the year, then that means you are not going to be liable for this 9% tax. You're going to be exempted from the tax entirely because you are deemed a small business, and as long as you elect for it in your tax return, you're not going to have to pay any tax. So to recap, if you make less than 816,000 US dollars a year in revenue, so that is not profit, that is revenue, then you're going to be exempted from this tax altogether. So none of this applies to you. If, however, you make more than that, then in that case, the first around 100,000 or 105,000 US dollars a year is still going to be taxed at 0%. But then any profits above that are going to be taxed at 9%. So really, as we can see, first of all, for most of you, I don't know how many people watching this channel make more than $816,000 a year, but statistically, this is going to be like 0.1% of people. All of you basically don't need to worry about this. Well, this small business relief is only available until 2026, so for the next 2 years. So yes, after that, you're going to have to worry about it. But until then, this is a great scheme to take advantage of. And even for the rest of you who do make above that, most likely, let's say you make $1 million a year, you're really only going to have to pay like a net effective 4 or 5% or something like that when you take into account that the first 100,000 is exempt and you take into account that you're going to be able to pay a salary to yourself. So what does this mean for you? Should you still move to Dubai? Well, of course, that's going to be your decision. That's going to depend on various factors such as, are you going to have to pay this tax? How much tax are you actually going to have to pay? How much do you actually want to be in Dubai? How much of your decision to move to Dubai is based on tax, and how much of it is for other factors as well, like the safety, the weather, the networking, and things like this. But first of all, if you make less than $816,000 a year, then basically the 9% tax should not make any effect in your decision because it's not relevant to you. After that, you need to ask yourself, how bad is 9% for you? Because the way I view taxes is not that I have to pay 0% out of principle because I don't want to give any of my money away. The way I view taxes is that I look at the ratio between how much do I have to pay and how much do I get. For me, for my preferences, and this is my subjective preferences, I really love the things that I get in Dubai. It's the most amazing place for networking. I love the weather, apart from the summer months. I love the safety. I love the vibe of the city. It's a kind of place where people are doing big things. It's the kind of city that gets me motivated, that gets me driven to do big things. So even if I had to pay this 9% tax, and let's say I have to pay the full force of the 9%, I would still not move out of Dubai. And the other reason for that is that if you look around the world, like what other options do you really have? Now, of course, there are many options where you can pay much less than 9%, but there's not that many where you're actually paying zero. Usually you're gonna have to pay something. Now, the one place where you should seriously think about whether Dubai makes sense is if you don't actually plan to live in Dubai. Now, of course, you could set up a company in Dubai and just run that company globally and live in Thailand or Eastern Europe or wherever. In that case, if you would actually be liable for the 9% tax, it might mean the UAE does not make sense. And here's why. Because the UAE will tax that UAE company regardless of whether you actually run it from the UAE. Although you should remember again that just because you set up a company somewhere else, let's say you set up a company in Hong Kong and you get 0% tax, but you still live in the UAE, that Hong Kong company is still going to be taxable in the UAE because the UAE taxes all companies that are residents or that are operated and managed and controlled from the UAE. So you can't get around this by just setting a company somewhere else. Let me know what you think about this 9% tax. Let me know what other countries you're interested in learning about. I'm currently on a massive trip around Asia. I'm exploring different places for perhaps a second residency. I'm going to go to Singapore soon, things like this. So definitely subscribe to this channel to learn all of my thoughts around these places. If you want to see another Dubai video where I tell you exactly what it actually takes to set up here, to become tax resident here, to move here, you can watch this video right here. I'll see you in the next one.